What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video on the Fearless Nick YouTube channel, and in today's video I'll be going through my 2023 AFL Round 8 tips and predictions, and obviously as well as that, like we always do, I'm going to be going back over my Round 7 tips from last week and seeing how I went. If you guys haven't already, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe. That would be much appreciated. I'm trying to get to 500 subs as quickly as possible, really. And yeah, I need all your help to get there. So if you haven't clicked the big red subscribe button down below yet, now's your time to do so. Also, remember to join my tipping comp. It will be down below in the description, and it'll also be in the pinned comment. I'll also put the code to join down there as well. So if you want a chance to win a free shout out and maybe even a sub from myself, then click the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment. Anyways, guys, without any other further ado, let's get straight on into my round 7 tips from last. So, looking back on my round 7 tips from last week, I got 5 out of 9 for round 7 last week. Somewhat disappointing, if I'm going to be honest. I normally get about 6 out of 9. I got 8 out of 9 last week. So we'll quickly go back over the games from last week. It started off on the Friday night between the Saints and the Power. And I tipped the Saints to win this match. And the Power got the job done by 7 points in the end. So fair play to the Power. They were too strong for the Saints on Friday night. So got that tip incorrect. And then moving on to the Saturday matches, I tipped Brisbane to beat Freo. No problems there. Brisbane were a little bit too strong for the Dockers. I think Brisbane are going to be an absolute force to be reckoned with, especially at the Gabba. They were far too strong for Freo there, like I said, so I got that tip correct. So in the next game, I tipped Sydney to beat GWS. This is probably the shock of the round. I didn't think GWS had what it took to beat Sydney, especially at the SCG. But so yeah, fair play to the Giants. That was an excellent win. They beat the Swans by 1 point, so I got that tip incorrect. And then I tipped the Bulldogs to beat the Hawks at Marvel Stadium. No problems there. The Bulldogs got the job done by 29 points. So yeah, got that tip correct. And then I tipped Melbourne to beat North Melbourne. Again, no problems there. Melbourne far too good for North Melbourne in that one. So yeah, got that tip correct as well. And then I tipped the Blues to beat the Eagles. Again, no problems there. The Blues won by 108 points, which is, I think, the biggest win so far in this season. Yeah, that was the win the Blues really needed, in my opinion, just to get their season back on track after a couple of poor weeks. So yeah, got that tip correct. And then I tipped Geelong to beat Essendon. I'm pretty happy I got this one correct because I was thinking about going for Essendon, but I ended up staying with Geelong. And yeah, the Cats, well, they got the job done there. So yeah, no problems there. I got that tip correct. But then the last 2 games of the round really screwed me over, to be honest. I tipped Richmond. Obviously, being a Richmond fan, I tipped Richmond over Gold Coast. I think it's safe to say Richmond are probably done for this season. Even as a Tigers fan, I don't see us coming back from this start to the season that we've had. So yeah, the Suns got a massive win for their season. Really are getting their season back on track with a pretty good win there over the Tigers, to be honest. You know, Richmond never really looked in it apart from maybe the start of the last quarter. And then the last game of the round, this is the one I'm most annoyed at because I was so close to getting this right. I tipped the Crows to beat the Pies at the Adelaide Oval to finish off round 7. And the Pies got the job done by 1 point. I'm very annoyed at this one because the Crows played so well for the entire match, and then just in the last, I think it was the last minute, I think they conceded a point where Collingwood ended up winning the game, obviously. But there we go. Those were my round 7 tips, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, 5 out of 9, not my best score. But yeah, those were my round 7 tips from last week. And now let's move on to my round 8 tips. Rightio, so here we are, ladies and gentlemen, round number 8. So we kick things off again on the Friday night, and this is a massive Friday night game, I must say. We've got Carlton taking on Brisbane at Marvel Stadium. Massive game, this one. Obviously, we all know the Blues had a huge win over West Coast last week by 108 points, and then we saw Brisbane last week. I think Brisbane just completely controlled Freo last week. The Dockers never really looked in it. to be honest. Brisbane just looked the stronger side. Carlton are the favourites to get this one done. I can see why, considering it's at Marvel Stadium. I know Brisbane, have been going very well, but I still question them away from the Gabba. So I think this will be a very interesting match, like I said. But I actually think after last week, the Blues will be having a lot of confidence that they can knock off the Lions here. I know the Lions have been very good, but I'm going to be tipping Carlton to win this match. To beat West Coast by 108 points in this sort of season where it's very, very even, I think is a great effort. So I think Carlton will win this match just because it's at Marvel Stadium. I think if it was at the Gabba, you'd go Brisbane. But I think Carlton, just because it's at Marvel, I think the Blues will be too strong here for the Lions. But I think it'll be a very, very close game. And I think the Blues will win this one by 11 points. Moving down now to this Saturday match, we have got Richmond taking on West Coast. You could arguably say these two sides have been some of the worst sides in the competition so far this year. Well, West Coast certainly has. Richmond have had a lot of problems with injury, and we just haven't really connected. That chemistry hasn't quite been there so far this year for the Tigers. After our Gold Coast game last week, surely there's got to be some fire in the belly here against West Coast. We cannot lose to West Coast and Gold Coast in the span of 2 weeks. That would just be deplorable if I'm being honest. Surely the Tigers have got to get the job done here. Just surely it has to be this week. I'm so sick of losing. I just want to see a bloody win. So I'm going to be tipping the Tigers here just because it's at the MCG. I mean, if it was at Optus, who knows what could happen if it was at Optus. But I think the Tigers, they'll be ready for this win. They'll want this win more than anything against West Coast. So I think the Tigers should be winning this match, and I think they'll win it by 23 points. Moving down now to GMHBA Stadium, we've got Geelong taking on the Crows. Wow, this is actually an interesting game. Look, on the topic of Adelaide, they almost deserved the win against Collingwood. I didn't think they deserved to lose against Collingwood, even though the last quarter might not reflect that. But I just think for 3 quarters, Adelaide, they played so well. So I genuinely think they could take it up to Geelong in this one. But obviously we saw Geelong last week. They pretty much destroyed Essendon for 3 quarters. And then I think they might have let the foot off the pedal in the last quarter. Look, the Crows, they are a dangerous side, but I just think the Cats are starting to find their groove in this season, and I think they're starting to rise the ranks a little bit. And I think, if they want to be a chance for top 4 again, then they've got to be beating the Crows here, especially at home. I'm going to be tipping Geelong in this one. I just think they'll be too strong, and they'll get the win here, the Cats. And Geelong, they'll win this one by 22 points. Moving down now to Heritage Bank Stadium, we've got Gold Coast taking on Melbourne. That's in Gold Coast, by the way, obviously Heritage Bank Stadium, formerly known as Metricon Stadium. Yeah, and again, this is a really interesting game. Melbourne, they looked pretty much unstoppable on, Saturday night against, a pretty average sort of North Melbourne team, let's be real. But, nonetheless, the Ds, they were far too strong for North Melbourne on Saturday night. And Gold Coast, it was a bit of an arm wrestle for a half. Both teams couldn't really get their game going, really. And then in the second half, Gold Coast came on and poured on like 4 goals, just like that. It was game over in the blink of minutes. I definitely think in Gold Coast, I think Gold Coast really could put it up to Melbourne in this one. They are a bit of a tough team to play in Gold Coast, the Suns. But I just think the way Melbourne are going right now, I think you'd have to back Melbourne in here. Although, wouldn't be surprised if there was an upset, to be honest. Gold Coast are the sort of side who could pinch one of these games. But I just think Melbourne, they've been going much better than Gold Coast, obviously, this year. And they're the stronger side, I think, just at the moment. But I think the Ds, they'll come out and win this one. In a bit of an arm wrestle as well. But they'll win this one, the Ds. I reckon they'll win it by 17 points. Moving down now to Manuka Oval, we have got the Giants taking on the Bulldogs. Now, this is a real interesting one, this one. the Giants have found a little bit of form as of late. They've just knocked off the Swans in the Sydney Derby by 1 point after they looked almost completely gone halfway through that last quarter. They found a way, the Giants. That's just what good sides do. Whereas the Bulldogs, well, like I said, they're starting to find a little bit of momentum as well, especially as of late. They've just knocked off Hawthorn. And they've also, they beat Freo as well pretty comfortably away from home. I know those sides aren't, the greatest sides so far. They still probably need to prove themselves against a genuine contender. At Manuka Oval, away from home, I think this will definitely be a great test for the Doggies to see how much they have improved. I have a sneaky feeling the Giants might pinch this one. I'm just going to put it out there. The Giants have been playing great footy as of late. And I know the Dogs are in great form, but I'm going to go a little bit of an upset here, and I'm going to tip the Giants. I just get a feeling in this one, the Giants, they've been playing great footy as of late. This might come back to bite me if this goes wrong. But I just think the Giants, they've been so competitive so far this year, and I just think they might just get an edge over the Dogs here in this one. And I think the Giants, they'll win another very close game against the Dogs here, and they'll win it. They'll hold on to win by 4 points. Moving down now to Optus Stadium, we have got Freo taking on Hawthorn. Well, this makes for a very interesting game as of late because, Hawthorn, they've been somewhat competitive the last couple of weeks. They did lose to the Dogs by 29, but the weeks before that, they only just went down to GWS, and they only just went down to, who else was it? Adelaide. And the Dockers, they've got a lot of question marks right now about them, the Dockers. I don't see Freo making the 8 as it stands. I just think they're a little bit too far gone. Their forward line is just a complete mess. I seem to mention it a lot, but I know we ramble on about the Dockers forward line a lot, but it just simply is the facts. The Dockers, they're a great side, but they just can't score. They literally just can't put on goals when needed. They can't be relying on like Schultz and Switkowski every week to kick their goals. They still really lack that big forward target. But, oh my God, if Freo don't win this, then they are in absolute all sorts, the Dockers, if they can't win this, especially at Optus Stadium. I'm going to be tipping the Dockers in this one. I just think they're going to be too strong for the Hawks here in this one. I think the Dockers, they'll be too strong in this one, and they'll win this one by 10 points. Moving down now to the Adelaide Oval, we have got Port Adelaide taking on Essendon. Wow, this is a really interesting game, this one. Port Adelaide found some massive form as of late. They did just knock off the red-hot looking Saints. And, the Bombers, they've sort of fallen into a bit of a slump, if I'm going to be entirely honest. They had their chances against Collingwood. They didn't take them, and Collingwood ran over the top of them in the last quarter. And then against Geelong, they were just completely outclassed. They didn't really look anywhere near it, to be honest, the Bombers, which has been really disappointing because they've started the year so well, the Bombers. So I definitely think they're a chance here in this one. However, saying that, Port Adelaide have been in great form as of late. They've just knocked off St Kilda. So I think their form cannot go unnoticed, the power in this one. So I think you have to back in Port Adelaide in this one. I know the Bombers have been very good to start off this season, but I just think at the Adelaide Oval, Port Adelaide, they're starting to find some form now. I do think the Bombers will put up a bit of a fight, but I think the Power will overrun them in the end, and the Power will win this one by 26 points. Moving down now to the MCG, we've got Collingwood taking on Sydney, and I know Sydney have been, struggling the last couple of weeks. They've struggled with injury, and I do feel bad for them because as a Richmond fan, injuries have really hurt us this season as well. But I think he'd be a bit of a brave man to tip Sydney at the moment. They are not in the best form at the moment, the Swans. And I think the Pies, after what I saw against the Crows, it blew my mind how the Pies were able to win that match, to be honest. I thought the Crows had that game in the bag during the third quarter, and especially when they kicked the first goal of the last quarter, the Crows. That was probably their most impressive win so far this season, especially over in Adelaide, where the Crows have been so dominant so far this year. I just think the Pies are too strong in this one. Like, the Swans have been not in the best form, like I said. I think they've lost about 3 in a row or something like that. I'm going to be tipping Collingwood in this match. I just think they'll be too strong for the Swans. The Pies win this one by 20 points. And the final game of the round, we have got at Marvel Stadium between North Melbourne and St Kilda. And I think this is another pretty easy one here. I think the Saints, should be winning this match. I think just after their loss against Port Adelaide last week, they'll want to come out and make a statement, the Saints. There's not really much to be said on North Melbourne. They just look like a completely average side so far this year. Even though they started 2-0, like I said, it's been all downhill for the Roos from there on out. I think the Saints, like I said, they'll be ready to come out and make a statement here against North Melbourne. I expect North, again, I do want to see North put up a fight, but I just think the Saints are the stronger side in this one, and they should be winning this match pretty comfortably. I think the Saints will get a really good win here, actually, and I think the Saints will beat North Melbourne here in a very comfortable win by 46 points. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those were my round 8 tips. Let's quickly go back over them. I've tipped St Kilda to beat North Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. I just think the Saints should be winning that one. They're the stronger side, and it's at Marvel, so they should be winning that one. The Saints. I've tipped Collingwood to beat Sydney. I think the Pies should be winning that match, especially at the MCG. And then I've tipped Port Adelaide to beat Essendon at the Adelaide Oval. So I think Port Adelaide should be winning that match. I've tipped Freo over Hawthorn. Not confident with this one. Freo have looked pretty average to start this season. Hawthorn have looked pretty competitive as of late. So I'm not ruling Hawthorn out of that one. They really could win that one, the Hawks, if they play 4 quarters of really good footy. But I think the Dockers should win this one. My upset of the week, I have tipped GWS to beat the Bulldogs at Manuka Oval. Obviously, as an upset, I'm not sure if this will happen or not, but the Giants have been super competitive as of late, so I think I'm gonna back in the Giants just this 1 week. I'm gonna back in the Giants to get a bit of an upset over the Dogs there. I've tipped the D's over the Suns. The Suns could put up a fight in that one, but I think the D's should be too strong, even in Gold Coast. I've tipped Geelong to beat Adelaide. Again, I could see Adelaide putting up a fight, but I just think Geelong at GMHBA Stadium, that ground is an absolute fortress. We already know the Cats barely ever lose a game down there, and the last time they played there, they won by 93 points. I've tipped Richmond over West Coast. Look, it's about bloody time Richmond got a win, to be honest. So surely, we can't lose to West Coast. Surely that would just be completely embarrassing. And then on the Friday night, I have tipped the Blues to beat the Lions. This is actually a 50-50 game, and I really understand why the percentage is so close. You really don't know who's going to win this match, to be honest, but I just think, because it's at Marvel Stadium, I think the Blues might be able to get a bit of an edge on the Lions. Obviously, the Lions haven't been great away from the Gabba, and I think the Blues will come out and make a statement here against the Lions, and I've tipped the Blues to get this one done by 11 points. So those were my round 8 tips, ladies and gentlemen, but before we go, as always, I wanted to show you my tipping comp. So if you haven't joined my tipping comp already, the link will be down below in the description, and it will also be in the pinned comment. So if you want a chance to win a shout out and maybe even a sub from myself, then click the link down below in the description or either in the pinned comment. So shout out to everyone here as well. Marie T, who's still on top of the ladder. I think it's because of the margin. I think he's on top because we've got a three-way tie actually for top of the ladder. We've got Marie T, Darcy T, and Christian all on 44 correct tips. In 4th spot, we've got Ben P on 42 correct tips. We've got Maxi Talks on 41 correct tips. Same as Shannon, who's also on 41 correct tips. So shout out to you, Shannon. Claudia is on 40 correct tips. Rick H, who's in 8th, currently on 40 correct tips as well. Same with Ned, who's also on 40 correct tips. I'm currently holding on to a top 10 spot at the moment. I got, obviously, like I said, got a 5, and I'm on 39 correct tips. Shout out to Cooper L, I don't know how to say that name, but I'm just going to say Cooper L. Shout out to you, Cooper, for joining the tipping comp. Absolute legend, mate. Thank you so much for that. You're currently in 11th on 39 correct tips as well. We've got Hugo in 12th on 37 correct tips. And down the bottom still, we've got Samuel D on 34 correct tips after 8 rounds. But yeah, that was my comp ladder after 8 rounds of the 2023 AFL season. So there we go, guys. Those were my round 8 tips for the 2023 AFL season. Remember to comment down below your tips for this week down below in the comments. Comment down below how you went if you're doing tipping down below in the comments as well. I love reading all your comments. Remember to leave a like, share, and subscribe if you did go on to enjoy today's video. It would really, really mean a lot. Also, remember to join my tipping comp. It will be down below in the description and will also be in the pinned comment. Like I said, if you want a chance to win a shout out and maybe even a sub from myself, then click the link down below in the description, and I'll also leave the code to join down below in the description and the pinned comment as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Cheers!